Okay, welcome everybody. Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the abridged code of Jewish law, chapter 67, and we're up to number 3. All right, so we're speaking about oaths, swearing, oaths, vows. The problem is that in English, a lot of these translations of vow and oath are all interchanged, but we have a neder and a shavua. That's what we're speaking about. A neder and a shavua. So Gimel number 3. A person should be very careful not to make any form of neder. Right? So neder, again, we're going to loosely call it a promise or a commitment that has a halachic authority. But even to give tzedakah, you should never make a neder he's going to give tzedakah, which is why normally if we make a pledge, we say beli neder, right? I'm making this pledge without the force of a neder. Rather, if he has the amount in his hand, right, or on hand, he pledges $100. That which he wants to give, for example, $100. Just give it. Don't pledge. Give it. And if you don't have it, rather than pledge, wait until you do have it. And then when you do have it, go give it. And in the meantime, don't make any pledges. The below neder, and they can give it without making any neder. So that would be the ideal. However, if people are pledging, right, it's pledge time. But and he has to pledge together with everyone else. He should explicitly say, he's pledging without it having any force of a vow. Likewise by Yitzchok, Shenoider in the tzedakah, when normally people pledge tzedakah, they should say beli neder, without any form of vow. Imhu be'esara mutal nidoy. If a person is in a time of distress, maybe he says to God, if you save me, I'm going to do such and such, he's allowed. So I just wanted to speak about Yitzchok a little bit and the purpose of pledging. So what's Yitzchok? Right? Yitzchok there's a few times a year, at the end of each yontiv, during each yontiv, so we will loosely call it, we remember, Yitzchok means remembrance. We have a small remembrance service for our beloved departed family members, the ones who we miss. Now, why do we do this? Plenty of things happen in life that we remember those who we've lost. We don't need to necessarily, you don't forget them. Maybe you're not thinking about them on a day-to-day basis after time passes. But definitely, one doesn't forget their parents, they don't forget their siblings, they don't forget, people don't forget these people. So what is the purpose? Once a soul has left this world, it's no longer in a physical body, it can't do mitzvahs like we can. Right? The ability to be able to physically fulfill a mitzvah in this physical universe is incredible. It's hidden from us what we accomplish, because if we could see it, there would be no free choice. And there'd be no challenge. We'd always just be doing the right thing. So what we accomplish is concealed from us. But when a person does something, especially if he does it for the right reasons, he's doing then what they draw down incredibly high levels of godliness into this world, while simultaneously elevating the godly sparks that's inherent in everything, and the two join, right? The Kabbalists call it making yichudim, unifications, and it's an incredible thing, and that's one of the primary purposes for creating a physical universe, is to be able to do that. So doing mitzvahs is something that is should never be taken for granted. It's incredibly, I don't even have the words for it. It's just awesome. Right? Now, when people passed away, although in spiritual realms they can still study Torah on certain levels, but the physical mitzvahs and to be able to overcome the challenge of the physical world, they can no longer do. So they can't elevate on their own. They can't go up to higher levels on their own. Only someone who's toiling in this physical world is able to ascend to higher spiritual levels based on what they do. So this is why, for an example, when we don't do mitzvahs in a cemetery, right? You don't give a shear in the cemetery. You don't, you're tucking your tzitzis when you go into the cemetery. You don't wear tefillin in the cemetery. Because if you do all that in the cemetery, you're like making fun of the deceased. It's like, ha ha ha, look what I can do and you can't, and they're not able to do it. It's very painful. It's like in their face, it's like, sometimes there are people who can't do certain things, and you don't need to show off in front of them that you can. It makes them feel bad. So that's this concept. Nevertheless, we know on a yard site, as an example, the neshamas have an aliyah. They go up to higher levels. So how can they go up in a higher level if they're not able to do mitzvahs? How are they judged again on the yard site? So what happens like this? The fact that we are a Jew today, this unfortunately throughout history has been tremendous amount of dropout from Jews. Even Yitzchok, right? Avram, the first Jew, Avram and Sarah. Sarah had one child, but Avram had several children. Only one stayed a Jew. Yitzchok had two sons, 50% assimilation. Only one stayed a Jew. And throughout history, it's been like this. We've mentioned before, probably more than once, that they found a census from about 100 years, Roman census from about 100 years before the destruction of the Second Temple. And there was approximately 13 million Jews in the Roman Empire at that time. And we know from other sources there were approximately 1 million Chinese at that same time. So today, you could still say approximately there's 13 million Jews, maybe up to 15, 16. And how many Chinese? Was it 1.5 billion or something? Now, why is that? Yes, part is persecution, Holocaust, pogroms, etc. But part of it, unfortunately, is is assimilation. There were approximately 6 million Jews in New York State in the year 1900, and there were approximately 6 million Jews in New York State in the year 2000. Now, there should have been 18 million, but just based on natural growth. Where did the rest go? It's unfortunate assimilation. So the fact that any of us are Jews today is partly because that there's been people in our history, our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, at least, probably several people, but at least some people who have had tremendous self-sacrifice. They went through difficult times to remain a Jew. They did great things. And so every mitzvah that we do is partly due to them. And so I don't want to call it pyramid marketing, because it trivializes it. But that concept, every every mitzvah that we do, they have a share in all the way back, pyramid marketing, back to Avraham Avinu, back to Abraham and Sarah. So that's what happens. So it's based on that they're reassessed on the yard side, the year's accomplishments, from what they achieved in this world. And it doesn't have to be biological descendants. Everyone influenced someone who influenced someone, etc., etc. So that's how they go up. One of the other ways is we can send care packages, so to speak. We say Kaddish on the yard side. One of the ways we send care packages is Yizka. Right? So we give them the merit of the mitzvah. So traditionally it's tzedakah. We pledge tzedakah, but it could be any mitzvah. Someone might take on any mitzvah. Someone perhaps didn't light Shabbos candles yet, might take on at Yizka. They're going to light Shabbos candles. And the merit of that mitzvah goes to whoever they're saying Yizka for, or whatever it happens to be. So it definitely is a time to pledge something, whether it's a mitzvah they're going to take on, whether it's tzedakah, that's secondary. But we should give something. And we do that, they get the merit of that mitzvah, and it's like they did it. And they're able to go up to higher levels. And it's a tremendous gift. Tremendous gift. But we have to say bli neder. Okay.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
I have two questions. Number one, regarding Yizkor. We have in the 6 remembrances, the Sheish Zechiros. So some of them says remember, and some of them says remember, don't forget. So is there any reason why we say don't forget by some, we don't say it by Yizkor?
Yeah, so Yizkor is about remembering. Well, Yizkor is about we remember them, they remember us, actually, interestingly. On Yizkor, they get a focus on us as well. But it's about that. No, it's about doing the mitzvah to give them something. The 6 remembrances, in case some people aren't familiar, there's 6 things that a Jew has to remember every single day. Right? They have to remember that we're going to have Egypt. We have to remember the giving of the Torah. We have to remember what Amalek did. We have to remember Shabbos. We have to remember what happened with Miriam, the incident when she got the tsaras. And we have to remember the golden calf. These are the six things that a Jew has to remember every day. So, according to some opinions, just thinking about it each day, that's remembering. According to many opinions, you have to actually mention it. You have to say it. It's not enough just to think. And so therefore many Siddurim, including Chabad Siddur to the Hashem, many Siddurim at the end of davening in the morning, you have them listed. And you read it, you say it. So you're actually remembering them every day. So how do we remember it? You could just say, remember this, remember that. But the custom is to actually read the verses in that speak about them. And so we read the verses. So what I was asked is that some of the verses say you have to remember, and some of the verses say remember and don't forget. So the ones that just say remember, they have a mitzvah to remember them every day. A positive mitzvah. Make sure you remember this every day. The ones that say remember and don't forget, there's 2 mitzvahs. There's a positive mitzvah to actually remember it, and there's a loita said there's a negative prohibition not to forget. You're not allowed to forget about it. So it's a second mitzvah that we have.
I have another question.
Yep.
Am I right, to tell you I was going to ask 2 questions? So you're talking about a person doing tshuva over a mitzvah that they didn't do, like lighting Shabbos candles. So now they can light Shabbos candles or putting on tefillin. So what about, like, I have very close friends, husband and wife, and she had an abortion, and now they're in the years where they can't have children because they're older.
Right.
So, what is the tshuva that they can do to try to remedy the situation besides giving to they give to tzedakah, I guess, to oh, I'm asking you.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's to tell a specific person how to do a tikkun for their neshama, for something they did. That you have to be a big tzaddik who can see their neshama and different things. But so, without saying anyone specifically, but generally speaking, generally speaking, the way that we know, so let's say for an example, there were people that the Rebbe told to they wanted tshuva for um, not eating kosher. They were expecting to be told, fast or something. They told them, publicize, educate people about kashrus. And people didn't keep family purity. They expected who knows what, the problem is they translate sometimes the word tikkun as penance. So that's why they're expecting all these things. But a tikkun really means how to fix, how to repair any damage that a person did to themselves through what they did. So again, the idea is to teach and encourage others different things. So you could say generally applies to any mistake. No one's perfect. We've all made mistakes. So what do? We have to try and encourage. So that there are organizations that try to help people keep children. Efrat is a very famous one. To that people shouldn't have abortions, and usually they try and, if it's a financial thing, they try and help, or if afterwards they'll find families who to adopt and different things. So person can support that, whether that's financially, whether that's in other ways. You make it publicize it, help different things, these organizations, right? There's in general, if they missed out an opportunity perhaps of giving a child a chinuch, a proper Torah education, they can help schools, Jewish schools that provide that, so they have a share in that mitzvah that they weren't able to do otherwise. Um, so these are some examples. So I don't want to make it sound like it's all tzedakah, because it's we're not a fundraising religion. Truth, not even religion, but we're not it's not all about do what you like, and then as long as you pay, it's all. But there's way, sometimes helping parents. It's some parents struggle. You can do the help, and that can be financially, that can be, it's us. Some people become adoptive grandparents. And they help families out like grandparent. I mean, people move all over the world nowadays, and who don't have the extended families live in the one little shtetl like they used to. I think that there's lots of ways that people can help to help make get involved. Through this organization. It's normally the other way around. They have a adopt a grandparent, one of the programs. Jewish generations. So that works both ways. Sometimes people who've retired and the families, then they're now in Florida and the family somewhere else, so they enjoy the company. But being an adopted grandparent, it's a two-way street. It can help that family as well. So I think there's some examples. Hope that
Thank you.
helped.
Thank
Okay,
you.
it's all right. Okay, so now number 4. All right, let's say a person, he wants to commit himself to a certain Torah study. Oy lasso says mitzvah, or to do a certain mitzvah. So let's say, for an example, let's just use a very simple example. A person hears about these classes and he decides, I want to join these classes. I want to join this kollel, and I'm going to study Torah every day, Mitzvah Shem. Now, v'hu pen yisrashel achikach. He's worried. Yeah, I'm excited now, but what's going to happen next week? Next week, I'm going to get a little bit lax. I'm worried the Yetzer Hara is going to get me. Yeah, I'm deciding to start putting on tefillin, and I got my tefillin. I'm gonna put on every day, but I know the Yitzchok is gonna start getting me. It's gonna get him lasas eza issa to do something wrong, or limdum lasas eza mitzvah, or to hold him back from doing a mitzvah. Mutal lizarze nafshe beneder b'shavua. He's allowed to make a neder or a shavua, these kind of promises that we normally try and avoid, in order to motivate himself. Right? So this person, he's going to make a neder. He's going to attend these classes. Okay, again, I'm not suggesting a person should, but a person theoretically would be allowed to. The Amarav, as Rav, one of the Talmudic sages, said in the Talmud, how do we know a person is allowed to make a shavua, an oath, to fulfill a mitzvah to motivate himself? He's making to motivate himself. Even though seemingly it's useless, because a Jew already made an oath to keep the Torah at Mount Sinai. And either we were there physically, which probably none of us are alive who were there physically, or at least our souls were there. So we've already made such a commitment. So how does it help? How do we know you're allowed to, or achieve anything? Shenamar, as it says, Nishbat v'kam lishma mishpatei tzidkecha. I swore, and I'll fulfill all your mitzvahs. Right? We did this already. Now, even if you don't word when you say I'm going to attend these classes, you don't say I'm making a neder or I'm making a shavua. You just made a statement. Just a general statement. Nevertheless, takes the power of a neder, vow, and has to keep it. So you're allowed to do it, but it can be dangerous because a person can make a neder and get stuck. Therefore, a person has to be very careful that when he takes upon himself, he says, I'm going to do this mitzvah, he should say the words beli neder without the power of a vow. And it's a really good habit to get into. Whenever a person says, I'll see you tomorrow, you can say, God willing, beli neder, whatever, something like that. Yes, I'll come to shul tomorrow, beli neder, whatever the commitment is. Always should say beli neder. And not only mitzvahs, but even a regular thing. So a person shouldn't stumble, God forbid, with this mitzvah of Nadarim. Okay. 5. So we said it's permissible, not necessarily recommended, but permissible for someone to make a neder, a vow, to ensure that he does a mitzvah. What about not a specific mitzvah per se, but to improve yourself? So let's look at number 5. A person wants to make a neder, a vow, to improve his midas, his character traits. Maybe this person snaps at people and they want to become more patient or more understanding, whatever it happens to be. This is praiseworthy. So Ketzad, what exactly are we talking about? Let's give you an example. This guy was gluttonous. He didn't just eat one burger, 6 double burgers. That was his thing. And that was just a snack. Right? So he makes a neder that he's not going to eat meat for a certain time, as an example. It's going to go a week without meat, let's say. Or he was overindulgent in wine. And so what did he do? He made a neder to forbid himself from having wine or other alcohol for a certain period of time. right? V'tain, another example. Mish haya mizgaya b'yoifov. He was very conceited about his beautiful appearance. V'kival of Nazirus, so he accepted upon himself to become a Nazir, to let his hair grow, or anything similar to this. So Nadarim ke'elu heim avodas Hashem yisbarach shemoy. Such Nadarim, this type of Nadarim, this type of oath, is a way of serving Hashem. And about such oaths that help us come close to Hashem, our sages told us, Nadarim sag lefrishus. Nadarim are a protective fence. Precious doesn't have an exact translation in English. They call it abstinence, but that's really it's not ideal. No, it stops us from overindulging in the physical world. So even though you're allowed, and it could be a good thing, Mikol Mokim, nevertheless, Gam Nadarim Ke'elu, even with such vows, which are essentially good, a person shouldn't get into the habit of doing this. Rather, he should work on himself, should put in the effort, and overcome the Yetzer Hara even without Nadarim, because Nadarim are dangerous. Okay. Now, so we've given an introduction. These first few are really introduction. What is a nether? Now we're going to speak more about the technical things. Number 6. Ein neder chal ela im hayapiv v'liba shaven. A neder only works if his mouth and intention are the same. Okay, I'll give a made-up example before we go further. So let's say the person, he meant to say he's making a neder that he's not going to, I don't know, he's not going to sleep in. Right? Makes a neder, he's going to get up 6 o'clock every morning. And by mistake, just slip of the tongue, he said he's making a neder, he's going to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So he said 3 o'clock, but his intention was 6 o'clock. So even though he said 3 o'clock, since that was not his intention, the words and the intention have to match. In this case, they didn't. He is not obligated to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, even though he said it. Said the words, I'm making that to do it. Right? Avol, in nada betos, if he made a neder by mistake. He wasn't, it was a slip of the tongue. He didn't mean to say what he said. Or he thought a neder in his heart, he intended something. But he didn't verbalize it. Right? He didn't verbalize it. There's no neder. So if he didn't actually say it, even though he wanted to make it, it doesn't work. And if he did want to make it, but he said the wrong thing, it doesn't work. It has to be that what he was intending and what he said were the same things. Okay. Number 7. So let's say someone never took on a neder, but he keeps a certain stringency. Be anything in Yiddishkeit, anything in Judaism, he does something extra. So, but the Varim Aturim Medina, it's something that technically is permitted halachically. He's not halachically obligated, but he does it machmas sayek v'geda precious, in order to make a fence around the Torah. To going tiniest meislichus. Maybe this person fasts during the days of Slichus. V'shloilech habasa, v'shloilish das yain, yudzayim b'tamas ha'elech. Right? So halachically, there's a 3-week mourning period from the destruction of the temple until, from when the walls were pierced on the 17th of Tammuz till Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. Those last 9 days, we're not meant to eat meat or drink wine. But there's some people who the whole 3 weeks, they don't. They take on extra. So a person took on extra things. Even though he only did it once. Although he intended it. He intended he's going to do this, he's going to take on this custom. But even though he only did it once, even though he intended, or he did it 3 times without any intention about going on. He wasn't thinking, he just did it. But he didn't say b'li neder. And he wants to stop, let's say, because he's not healthy. He has to go to a rabbi or a beis din, and he has to have his vow annulled. Right? So now we're coming across, this is a new concept. So till now, we said a neder has to be verbalized. And even when you verbalize it, it has to be what you meant. That's what we said. Now we're saying there's a new way. If a person actually takes on something extra, even once, but when they did it the once, they intended to do it from now on, it becomes a neder. Or if a person did a good thing 3 times in a row, again, and didn't say b'li neder, it also becomes. So let me give a more practical example. Let's say a person decides, he never said anything, never made any formal declarations, just decided in his mind, you know what? Every morning before davening, he's going to give tzedakah. Let's say. And then he does it once. And he intended that he's always going to do it. Or he just heard it's a good thing to give tzedakah in the morning, and he wasn't thinking, is he going to continue or not continue? But he did it 3 days in a row. So if he did not say b'li neder, it can have the force of a neder. Yes, Mordechai.
I think I read somewhere that there's like some people have a custom to stand all throughout Neola, but that something like one should sit briefly, otherwise he's obligated to stand for
Right.
Neola for the rest of his life.
Correct. So it's the same idea. Same idea. Exactly. Excellent example. So people are going to stand during the Ilah. Some people try and stand the whole Rosh and Kippur davening. Again, I'm not recommending it necessarily. And but there might be a person and he stands during the Ilah and he might do it a few years, and then as we get older, it becomes a little bit harder with the fasting, and they're not able to do it. They're not feeling as strong as they used to. So it becomes problematic. So anything that a person wants to take on, they should say b'li neder. Right? That's another very good example. Right? But whatever happens to be, there might be a certain stringency in kashrus. Maybe a person lives in a place where it's easy to keep this stringency. And so they take it on with the intention to do it forever. And then they move somewhere else where it's difficult. It's not, or maybe not even possible. So whenever a person takes on something extra that they're not obligated to do, they should say b'li neder. So how do we annul the vow? The yiftach b'charata. We have to find an opening. You have to find, you can't just take away someone's vow. There has to be an opening. In other words, we need to have a legitimate reason to undo the vow. We need to find an opening. we need to find a way that shows he regrets conducting himself in a way that made a neder. Therefore, someone who wants to take on stringency, the saying of precious in order to keep mitzvahs to a high level. He should explicitly say he's not taking this on as a neder. V'gan yomer, likewise, he should say, or he should say something along the lines, I'm only doing it this time, or I'm only doing it when I can. Right? So I'll give an example from my own life. I found often, and sure, what happens is after davening, everyone's putting away their tefillin, and sometimes it becomes party time. It's people wrapping up their tefillin and their talis, and they start talking about the sports game and did you hear the news and a Trump this and someone else that and something else, and it's a bit of an anticlimax to the davening. So I took on, and I explicitly said, "Bli neder," and only when I can, that while I'm rolling up my tefillin, I say the 13 principles of Jewish faith, and think about them. Right? But I particularly said only when I can. So let's say, for example, I'm traveling. You're davening between connecting flights at the airport, and not that we're rushing davening chasron, but it's you don't have the same time and different things. So if I don't have time, I don't have time, whatever it is, because I didn't take it on as a net. I'm going to do this every day. I took it on as when I'm able, when it works. And so over a majority of the days of the year, that's what we do. And there's always a day or two, whatever happens. But it doesn't happen. So that's how it goes. All right. So that's how a person should do it. They want to take something on, they should say bli neder, and or say I'm only doing it this once, and or I'm only doing it a few times when I can, when it works. Okay. But let's say a person didn't, right? He did it. It has the force of a neder, of an oath, or a shavua, or even he did actually make a neder, but circumstances change. What does he do? Number 8, Kaitsa matirimis a neder or shavua. How does a person annul his neder or shavua, his vow or his oath? He has to go to 3 learned people. And at least one of them has to be an expert in the laws of Nadarim. One has to study it. The other 2, if you learn it enough that when the expert tells them, discusses with them the various factors, they know what's going on. But one of them has to be very proficient in the laws. So he'll know which, because not every vow can be annulled. He has to know which ones can. Which ones can't. And he also has to know how you can annul them, because what works for one type of vow might not work for a different type of vow. And they can annul the vow for him. Right? Now, if someone in a dream he took a vow, so he didn't really do it, but he did in a dream. He remembers clearly that in his dream he took on a neder. So he doesn't technically have to annul it. It technically doesn't have any validity. However, on a spiritual level, you should try and have it annulled. In this case, if possible, even by by 10, with 10 people. Right, so there's a whole discussion in rabbinic literature whether a vow that someone made in a dream is a real vow or not. Okay. Number 9. Afa pi shel inyan al kol mitzvah shebatayra ein haben nase gadol ad sheyeh lo sholosh esrei shana v'hevish saris. Even though, when it comes to obligation and mitzvahs in the Torah, a person is only fully obligated once they're bar mitzvah. So for a male, 13, and developed 13 years of age and developed 2 pubic hairs. But bas any gedola ad sheyeh lo shtem esrei shana v'visimon. Likewise, a girl only becomes an adult and therefore fully obligated in the mitzvahs once they turn 12 and have 2 pubic hairs. However, in regards to this concept of a neder or shavua, vow or an oath, they become obligated 1 year earlier. In other words, we say, okay, we test them, we see if they actually have the responsibility and the maturity, but presuming that they do, so the average 11-year-old girl and the average 12-year-old boy understand that if you give a commitment to something, you have to follow through. So therefore, shekotten ben shneim esrei shono b'yom echad, v'ktano achad asa shono b'yom echad. So a boy once he's turned 12, or a girl once she's turned 11, even if they don't yet have pubic hair, if they understand who they are swearing to, in other words, they understand God, they have made a vow, then the Drehem Neder Shavua Sam Shavua, then the Neder and Shavua works. But less than this, younger than this, even if they understand, they're genius and incredibly mature kids, and they understand everything. 5 years old. Ein devrem klum. The words are meaningless. We call mocking nevertheless. You have to reprimand them, and if need be, corporal punishment. Because we don't want kids growing up swearing all the time. Because and if it's an easy thing for them to fulfill, well, there's not going to be any suffering. We make them fulfill it. Right? Even though there's no halachic validity, but the guy said he swears he's going to drop the thing off at grandma's. All right? So we make him. Okay. So that is the age where it starts. Now, we're now going to just give an introduction to the next law. By a boy, there's 2 stages. There's before bar mitzvah, they're a cotton, they're a child. And then they become bar mitzvah, they become an adult. 13, become an adult. By a girl, there's 3 stages. There's child until 12. Then from 12 to 12 and a half, it's called the naira. Not naira, they often translate as young girl, but let's call it semi-adult, majority adult. And then 12 and a half, fully fledged adults. That's the 3 stages by a girl. Now, the Torah has various halachas that we speak about in naira. Why does the Torah use the naira as example? Always, and not about an adult or a child, different things. Because we see like this. A naira is semi-adult, generally speaking, an adult. So if the father still has authority over her, in this case, then we understand that law applies to a child as well. If we see the naira in this law is independent, so we see she's like the adult, and the adult has the same law. So rather than teaching the law 3 times, or this is how it applies to a fully adult child, this is how it applies to the naira, this is how it applies to the child. We say no, we teach it by the naira, by this intermediate level, and then we see if she's already treated like an adult at the intermediate level, we know it applies to adulthood. If she's still treated like the child at the intermediate level, then we see that applies. That's how it works with the child. So that's why the Torah often teaches laws about a naira. And since the Torah does that, here when we discuss it in the Shulchan Aruch, we're going to do that as well. Okay, so number 10. Av meifer nidrei bitoy ad shtisboger. A father can annul his daughter's vows until she becomes full adult. That means what's full adult for this? Sheila Yud Beis Shana Shish Chadoshim. She's 12 and 6 months. Pushal Nisais, as long as she didn't get married, right? People got married that age in the past. So, the father has the ability, even by the naira, to annul her vow. So, of course, he can annul when she's a child. Once she becomes 12 and a half, she is responsible for her own actions, and her father can no longer nullify her vows. That's by the naira. Okay. Baal mefer nidra ishtoi, and a husband can also nullify his wife's vows. We're going to see it's not every vow, but any vows that interfere in the marriage, you can. So, Ketzah Mafrishim, how does the father nullify his daughter's vow? He says he should say, ideally, he should say 3 times, Mufa, which means it's cancelled, revoked, maybe, or bottle, or it's like a non-existence, abolished. Or some other expression that indicates that. Because what he's actually doing is not canceling the vow, he's retroactively making it like it never happened. He's uprooting it. Now, Bain Shomek came before Neha. It's irrelevant whether he says that in front of her, or not in front of her. She doesn't have to be present. Avoloshin HaTorah, but to say HaTorah that's been annulled, Lo Mahani Ba'avabal, doesn't help the father or the husband. Right? In other words, he doesn't have the ability to annul her vow. He only has the ability to retroactively root it like it never existed. That's what he can do. Likewise, another condition is he has to nullify it, or not nullify, he has to root it on the day that he hears it. So if he heard it, then okay, she made a vow. She's only going to brush her teeth every second Tuesday. Good. He hears, fine. 2 days later, he wakes up and he thinks to himself, that's terrible. She's going to get cavities. It's too late. He had to root it when he heard it. When he heard it. The Hainu im Shom v'tchilas halayla. So, if he heard it at the beginning of the night, since the Jewish day starts at night, so he heard it right when it first got dark. Now he has that entire night and the entire following day till sunset the next day to do it. Vim shama b'yoyim. If he heard sometime during the day, samach l'tzeitzik, he has close to nightfall. Right, so a little bit after sunset he has. The yois ein l'chum l'hafer, and after that doesn't help. The Shabbos loim el mufa libi. On Shabbos he can't say to her that it's revoked for you, like he does during the weekdays. El mavata b'liboy v'ema l'tol echli getzboy. Right? Rather, what he does. So let's say she swore she's not going to eat something. He can't tell her on Shabbos that that he's revoked it and she can eat it. What is he does, since it's Shabbos, you're not really meant to deal with these things on Shabbos, but since he has to do it that day, he just revokes it in his mind. I mean, literally said in his heart, but not in his intentions. And then he tells her, you can eat this now. Case was and the like. Now, if the father husband originally, they said, oh, that's a good vow. Even if they didn't actually say it, but they did something that indicates it. That they agree. Or they just thought in their mind, oh, that's a good idea, making that vow. That they agree to the vow. That even the same day, they can no longer revoke it because they agreed. Right? And if you agree to it, it's all over. It's all over. Right? But if she took a vow conditional on something, we're going to see you have to look in the big Shulchan Aruch. Right? Someone says, in other words, person says that, I'll just make up an example. She said she's making a vow. She's not going to eat meat if such and such happens in 2 months. You can't annul it now because it didn't take effect. You have to wait till the incident happens in 2 months or doesn't happen. Let's say it does happen. Then the vow goes into effect. Then you can nullify it on that day. Okay. Number 11. And we'll finish the chapter. What type of vows can a father or husband revoke? Only something that is self-affliction. Kegoin, for example, she makes a vow, she prohibited washing herself or dressing nicely or putting on makeup, case with and the like. Additionally, so the father can only things that's gonna. She says she's not gonna eat something, right? She's afflicting herself. The husband can do all of that, plus on top of that, if the matters that it directly affects the relationship, it's going to cause hostility. He can also. But then, even those ones, that's only while she's married to him. However, if she became widowed or divorced, then the neder comes back, and in other words, he didn't completely cancel it. He just put a hold on it, and if she becomes widowed or divorced, the neder returns. Okay, so that's the chapter. Any questions? All right. Well, in that case, wish everyone a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I guess our normal Shabbos afternoon. Have a good Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Take care.